There's a moment a lot of people know. You walk into a room, a party, a shopping center, a train platform, and before you've even had a single thought about it, something in your body has already decided. Your chest gets a little tighter. Your breathing shifts. Your eyes start moving faster, scanning, looking for something. Maybe a wall to stand near, maybe an exit, maybe just a quieter corner somewhere. And nothing has actually gone wrong. Nobody said anything to you. There's no real threat anywhere in the room. There's just people and noise and closeness. And somehow that's enough. What's interesting is the explanation most people give themselves in that moment. I'm just tired. I'm not feeling social today. I just don't really like crowds. And those things might be true, but they're also a little too simple. Because what's actually happening underneath all of that, underneath the tightness, the scanning, the pull toward the exit, is more interesting than just not liking crowds. And it says something real about how your nervous system learned to move through the world. In this video, we're going to look at what's actually going on when a crowded room feels like too much. Not as a flaw in your personality, not as something to diagnose or fix, just as a real experience. One that a lot of people carry quietly for most of their lives without ever quite having words for it. But here's the part most explanations miss. A lot of people who struggle in crowds don't actually have a problem with people. Some of them are incredibly warm, deeply social, some of the most emotionally in tune people you'll ever meet. The issue isn't other people. The issue is the environment itself and what that environment asks your nervous system to do all at the same time. We'll get into that. But first, let's start somewhere more familiar. If any of this already sounds like you, there's a good chance you've built a quiet set of habits over the years. You arrive early, before a place fills up, because you already know what it feels like once it does. You find the edges of rooms, the seat closest to the wall, the corner of the party where you can just watch without being in the middle of everything. You've canceled plans before, not because you didn't want to see the person, but because you knew the place itself would cost too much. And you've spent time afterward feeling a little guilty about it, wondering if it was just an excuse, wondering why this particular thing always feels so hard. Maybe you've watched someone else move through the exact same space, same noise, same crowd, same everything, and they looked completely fine, energized even. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you thought, what is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, but something is different, and that difference is worth understanding properly. Every human brain is receiving an enormous amount of information at any given moment. Sound, light, movement, temperature, the emotional tone of the people around you, the proximity of strangers, the background hum of 100 conversations happening all at once. Most brains come with a fairly strong filter. It decides what matters and what can just disappear. Background noise? Gone. Movement in the corner of your eye? Ignored. Some stranger's expression across the room? Not relevant. Moving on. But some nervous systems have a much more open filter. Not because something is wrong with them, just because that's genuinely how they're wired. Researchers call this sensory processing sensitivity, and it shows up in roughly 1 in 5 people. What this means in a crowded room is that you're not having the same experience as the person standing right beside you. They're receiving a crowd. You're receiving every individual piece of that crowd all at once. The particular pitch of 2 voices overlapping. The way someone's energy shifts when they're a little uncomfortable. The fluorescent light flickering slightly in the corner. The physical closeness of strangers who didn't choose to be near you and aren't choosing to move. It's not that you're being oversensitive. It's that your brain is simply doing more work. A lot more. And that work has a cost. There's a part of your brain called the amygdala. Its whole job is to scan for potential threat, and when it finds something, or something that even resembles something, it sends a signal. That signal isn't a thought. It arrives before thinking. It's physical. A tightening, a shift in your breathing, a slight narrowing of where your attention goes. Your body moves into a quiet, protective state before your rational mind has had a chance to weigh in at all. In calm, predictable environments, the amygdala mostly stays quiet. But in a crowded space, where movement is constant, where people are unpredictable, where the sensory volume is just high, it starts flagging things. Not because you're actually in danger, but because your brain is wired to treat unpredictability as something worth watching. And here's the thing about that. 1 flag is fine. 2 flags is fine. But in a crowded room, your nervous system might be managing 30 flags at once, each one small, each one technically not a big deal. And the cumulative effect is a low-level internal alarm that just never fully turns off. You're not panicking. You're not in crisis. You're just running the whole time with that quiet alarm blinking in the background. That's what the exhaustion is afterward. That's why you need an hour alone just to feel like yourself again. Your nervous system was working that entire time. It just wasn't visible to anyone else in the room. Here's something that a lot of people with this experience carry without quite naming it. You're not actually bad at connection. In the right environment, you're probably very good at it. You notice things. You listen in a way most people don't. You can stay with someone's emotional experience in a way that takes real capacity, but a crowded room takes that capacity away. Not because of the people in it, because of what the environment itself demands from you. When your nervous system is already working overtime just to process the room, there's nothing left for real presence. You're physically there, but internally you're managing inputs, discomfort, the performance of ease, and nobody around you can tell. That's the part that can feel lonely. Not the crowds themselves. The fact that all of this is happening invisibly, the whole time, and from the outside, you look completely fine. For a lot of people, this sensitivity didn't just appear out of nowhere. When you grow up somewhere emotionally unpredictable, where moods could shift without warning, where you learn to read the room before you learn to read much else, your nervous system adapts. It gets very good at early detection, at picking up on tiny signals before they turn into something bigger, at staying one step ahead of whatever might be coming. That skill was useful then. It probably protected you in real ways. But the nervous system doesn't know how to retire a skill it learned for survival, so it brings that same alertness to a crowded shopping mall, a packed subway platform, a busy Friday night. And it does what it was trained to do. Scan everything. Note every change. Stay ready. The exhaustion isn't really from the crowd. It's from the fact that a crowd never sends a clear signal that says, "You're safe now, you can stop." Understanding this doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't excuse anything. It just shifts the question. Instead of, "Why can't I handle this?" it becomes, "What did my body learn that made this level of alertness feel necessary?" That's a softer question, and it usually has a real answer. You're not antisocial. You process more deeply than most people do, which means you need more recovery time than most people do. That's not avoidance. That's just an honest account of what things actually cost you. You're not broken for leaving early. You're not weak for wanting to be near the exit. You're not difficult for choosing a quiet dinner over somewhere loud and packed. You're someone whose nervous system works a certain way, and has probably been working that way for a long time without much acknowledgement. And the life you build around that isn't a smaller life. It's just a more honest one. So let's come back to that moment. The crowded room, the tightening in your chest, the eyes already scanning for the exit. It's not weakness, it's a nervous system receiving more input than most, flagging unpredictability out of habit, managing a cost that nobody else in the room can see. For some of you, that's something you've always known quietly, but never quite had language for. For others, it might be the first time you've thought about it as a system, rather than a flaw. Either way, the reaction isn't random. It makes sense, and understanding that is usually where things start to shift, just a little. If any part of this felt true to you, I'd genuinely like to hear about it in the comments. Not what you do to cope, not tips or strategies, just, does this match what you've actually felt? Because sometimes the most useful thing isn't a solution. It's just realizing that what you felt was real, and that it made sense, and that other people feel it too. there's one more layer to this we haven't talked about yet. It connects directly to what happens between the crowded moments, the quiet, what you do with it, and why, for some people, solitude isn't just rest, it's something a little more complicated than that. That's the next one.